Hello, and welcome to Space for Sleep. I'm truly glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you're lying somewhere, quiet, a soft glow beside you, your mind drifting between thought and dream. Wherever you are, this is a space for curiosity wrapped in calm, where questions stretch as wide as the universe itself. Tonight, we'll wander down a path that winds not through distant galaxies, but through the deep, forgotten corridors of our own world. Because maybe, just maybe, we are not the first. For centuries, we've looked to the stars to ask who might be out there. But what if the real mystery was beneath our feet all along? What if Earth itself has hosted civilizations before us, not the Stone Age tribes we know, but something more advanced, something that rose, thrived, and vanished long before history began keeping score? It sounds like science fiction, but the question isn't as far-fetched as it first seems. To wonder whether we were the first is really to ask how much time, destruction, and renewal this planet has seen. Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Modern humans? Barely 300,000. Civilization as we define it, cities, writing, agriculture, just about 12,000. That's less than the blink of an eye in geological time. If another species built something extraordinary a few million years ago, would we even know? The evidence of our own age is fragile. A city made of steel and glass can vanish beneath forests and oceans in less than 10,000 years. Skyscrapers crumble, plastic breaks down, even monuments erode. The fossil record itself is notoriously incomplete, an unbroken story with whole chapters missing. So if there ever was another us, could they have left behind even a trace? Scientists actually have a name for this kind of thought experiment, the Silurian Hypothesis, proposed by two NASA-affiliated researchers, Gavin Schmidt and Adam Frank. The idea asks whether it would be possible to detect the existence of an industrial civilization in Earth's deep past, say tens of millions of years ago, solely from the geological record. Not because they think one existed, but because exploring the question reveals just how delicate the signatures of civilization really are. Think about it. If humans disappeared today, what would remain after 100 million years? The continents themselves would shift. Oceans would rise and fall. Entire mountain ranges would erode and reform. Our artifacts, the symbols of everything we are, would be reduced to thin, scattered traces, perhaps a faint chemical anomaly in the soil, a curious layer of synthetic compounds in ancient rock, maybe some peculiar isotopes from nuclear reactions. In that sense, the Earth is both archive and eraser. It remembers in whispers. The deeper we look, the quieter the stories become. Imagine a civilization flourishing in a warm, stable epoch, long before the dinosaurs went extinct. Imagine them exploring, building, shaping their environment, just as we do. And then a sudden catastrophe, a volcanic chain reaction, a shift in atmosphere, or a self-inflicted collapse. In a few million years, the surface resets. The traces vanish beneath sediment, tectonic drift, and time itself. When we finally dig through those layers, we find fossils of sea creatures, mineral veins, ancient forests, but no clear signs of intelligent hands. It's humbling to realize how small our mark might be in the grand sweep of time. Still, scientists have found curious clues that provoke the imagination. For instance, in 1972, a team discovered a natural nuclear reactor in Oklo, Gabon. 2 billion years ago, conditions in the Earth's crust allowed uranium deposits to sustain nuclear fission reactions, all by themselves. For a brief time, nature built something we'd normally call technology. The Oklo reactor reminds us that even something as astonishing as nuclear fission can occur without civilization, and that the line between the artificial and the natural is sometimes blurred. If future geologists found the remnants of our own reactors, would they even be able to tell the difference? Then there are the outer place artifacts, UPARTs, that fringe researchers sometimes point to as possible evidence of lost civilizations. Tiny metal spheres found in South African mines, supposedly billions of years old. Microscopic metallic coils unearthed in Russia. Patterns in rock that look uncannily like machinery. Mainstream science usually explains these away as natural formations, misdated samples, or human contamination. Yet even skeptics admit the appeal of the question. Because if such anomalies were ever confirmed to be artificial, if even one truly dated back millions of years, it would rewrite everything we know about ourselves. But the absence of proof is not proof of absence. The fossil record teaches us that most of life's history is gone beyond recall. 99% of all species that ever lived are extinct. Civilizations, if they arose before us, would face the same odds. Erosion, subduction, and climate cycles act like cosmic editors, deleting all but the faintest punctuation marks in the planet's story. Our own civilization leaves behind layers of concrete, plastic, carbon emissions, radioactive isotopes, the so-called Anthropocene signature. It's a unique fingerprint, but one that will blur with time. Give it a few million years, and our existence might reduce to a thin, dark line in sedimentary rock, a chemical sigh marking a brief fever in the planet's long life. In fact, geologists have already found similar mysterious layers in the ancient record. There are abrupt spikes of carbon dioxide, sudden warm periods, mass extinctions that reset ecosystems overnight. Some of these events, like the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum 56 million years ago, look eerily like the climate pattern we're generating today. No evidence of machines or cities then, but could that carbon surge have been natural? Almost certainly. Yet it also reminds us that if another civilization had once triggered such a spike, we might read it today as just another natural anomaly. The deeper we dig, the less certain we become of what counts as ordinary. The Silurian Hypothesis challenges us to recognize that civilization, even at its height, is a fragile and transient phase in a planet's evolution. It's not the default state of a world, but a rare and possibly recurring experiment. And the Earth, patient, cyclical, unhurried, might have hosted that experiment more than once. If we allow our minds to drift back through time, farther than recorded history, farther than the last ice age, we reach an Earth that is both alien and familiar. Continents have different names, different shapes, yet the same sun rises and sets. Oceans breathe in tides, mountains grow and crumble, forests whisper in the wind. Life adapts, thrives, disappears, and returns. It is in this endless rhythm that we must imagine the possibility of something before us. Not a human civilization, of course, but perhaps a lineage of intelligence entirely separate, now erased. We know intelligence is not unique to us. Whales compose intricate songs, dolphins call each other by name, crows shape tools, octopuses solve puzzles. If evolution produced such minds again and again, could it not have produced one capable of building, engineering, recording, dreaming, long before our ancestors took their first upright steps? The fossil record preserves bones and shells, but not minds. It cannot show us consciousness, curiosity, or imagination. The geological record is blind to philosophy. And yet, if an intelligent species once walked the Earth millions of years ago, perhaps the only hints they left would be subtle ones. Patterns, anomalies, traces of chemistry that don't belong. When we look at Mars or Venus and search for signs of life, we study the atmosphere for imbalance, gases that shouldn't coexist naturally. In the same way, if a past civilization once altered Earth's air or water, we might see the residue of their existence not in artifacts but in chemistry. Layers of carbon soot, unexplainable isotopes, traces of industrial pollutants that appear and vanish without clear cause. And indeed, scattered throughout geological history are strange moments, brief spikes in heavy metals, abrupt increases in ocean acidity, unexpected bursts of warming. Most have natural explanations: volcanoes, asteroid impacts, methane release. But perhaps one or two are whispers of something else, something that once tried to master its world and failed. To entertain that thought is not to indulge fantasy, but to see ourselves with humility. We are used to thinking of humanity as the pinnacle, the inevitable result of evolution's march. But maybe we are simply the latest in a series of experiments, each rising and falling in cycles too vast for memory. It's worth asking, if we disappeared today, would the next intelligence know we ever existed? 100 million years from now, the continents will not look the same. The Atlantic will widen, Africa will merge with Europe, and new mountains will rise where seas once were. The remnants of our cities will lie buried under kilometers of sediment, or swallowed by the mantle itself. The pyramids might become distorted lumps of quartz and sandstone. Our satellites will have burned up long ago. All that might remain is a thin geological scar, a brief pulse of plastic polymers, a spike of radioisotopes, a subtle layer of carbon black. That would be our entire biography, compressed into stone. And so when we wonder about civilizations before us, perhaps they too left behind nothing more than a whisper. Yet there is something haunting about the possibility. Ancient myths from every culture tell stories of great floods, lost worlds, golden ages that ended in fire or water. Atlantis, Lemuria, Shambhala, the world before the flood. Tales repeated independently across continents and eras. Could such stories be distant echoes of forgotten truths, passed down in fragments through the ages? Or are they simply reflections of humanity's awareness of nature's cycles, the rising seas, the storms, the inevitability of loss? The scientific mind must approach these stories with caution. Myth is not evidence, but myth does reveal what humans instinctively feel, that creation and destruction are intertwined, that what rises will one day fall, and that memory itself can fade like dust in wind. From that perspective, the question, what if we are not the first, is not just about archaeology or geology. It's about perspective, about understanding our place in a world that renews itself endlessly. If intelligence arises easily, perhaps it is woven into the fabric of life. Perhaps civilizations bloom and fade like coral reefs, each leaving subtle changes in the biosphere. But if intelligence is rare, a cosmic fluke, then our existence becomes even more fragile, a miracle balanced on the edge of entropy. Either way, the question reminds us how temporary we are. Scientists sometimes use the anthropic principle to explain why the universe seems so perfectly tuned for life, because if it weren't, we wouldn't be here to notice. But what if that principle applies to civilizations too? Maybe we only ever see our own because the others have already vanished. In a sense, every civilization may live in a kind of cosmic isolation, born into its moment, unable to see those that came before or after. The Earth forgets quickly. Its crust recycles, its seas dissolve, its air reshapes. Even the most durable evidence, fossils, minerals, isotopes, survives only by chance. It's humbling to realize that our own time, the entire sweep of human history, occupies less than a blink in Earth's calendar. If the planet's lifetime were a single day, civilization would have appeared less than a second before midnight. In that second, we built everything we know: language, art, science, cities, and yet, when the clock strikes 12, it could all vanish again. The Silurian Hypothesis forces us to confront that impermanence. It's not just a thought experiment about aliens from our past, it's a mirror held up to our future. What would it take to make our presence truly permanent? Could we ever leave a mark that time cannot erase? Perhaps that's why some dream of sending records into space, golden discs, coded messages, data etched into crystal, in the hope that someone, somewhere, someday might find them, because deep down we all want to be remembered. We want proof that we existed, that we mattered, but maybe the Earth itself is not the place for permanence. Maybe it's a stage, not an archive, a world that nurtures, then resets again and again. The real permanence might lie beyond it, in the data we cast into the cosmos, in the faint electromagnetic fingerprints of our thoughts and transmissions. Right now, our civilization's presence radiates outward at the speed of light, a growing bubble of signals about 100 light-years wide. For a brief time, we are visible, but even those signals will fade, drowned by cosmic noise. The universe does not keep records easily. Entropy always wins. And yet, there's something beautiful in that. To exist at all, even briefly, in the face of such vast erasure, that is a kind of miracle. To think, to wonder, to build, and to ask if others once did the same, connects us across time, even if the others are forever beyond reach. So as you listen, imagine not just the Earth you know, but the one that existed long before human memory, where continents wore different faces and the air carried unfamiliar scents. Imagine oceans glowing beneath alien stars, forests of forms we'll never see again, and perhaps, just perhaps, the faint lights of a civilization that dreamed and vanished before the first human heartbeat. Somewhere in the deep record of the Earth, their story might still sleep, waiting for us to listen closely enough to hear it. Perhaps the most fascinating part of this mystery isn't whether such a civilization existed, but how it would change everything we believe about progress and time if we found proof. We tend to imagine history as a straight line, a slow climb from simplicity to complexity, from cave to city, from ignorance to understanding. But nature doesn't draw straight lines. It spirals, repeats, collapses, begins again. Evolution itself is full of resets, where catastrophe wipes the board clean and life starts over. 66 million years ago, an asteroid ended the age of dinosaurs in an instant. Yet out of that devastation came the rise of mammals, and eventually, us. If another intelligent species had once walked the Earth before that impact, their world would have vanished in fire. No amount of technology could have withstood such force. Oceans boiled, skies turned black, continents burned. Afterward, only ashes and stone. In a million years, even those would blend into the sediment. The surface of the Earth is not a static museum. It is a living canvas constantly rewritten by time. To find evidence of a lost civilization, we would have to look beneath that canvas, deep into the geological layers that record the planet's long memory. Scientists already drill ice cores to read the history of climate trapped in bubbles of ancient air. They analyze sediments for traces of pollen, dust, and isotopes that tell stories of fire, flood, and renewal. But what if, hidden among those stories, there were traces that didn't fit? A sudden spike of synthetic compounds, unexplained patterns in isotope ratios, microscopic residues of alloys or plastics that shouldn't exist. We'd have to look with new eyes, not just for fossils, but for chemistry that whispers of artifice. It's possible we've already seen such things and dismissed them as contamination. After all, scientists expect natural explanations: volcanic activity, cosmic impacts, biological changes. The thought of a pre-human industry is so extraordinary that it would take overwhelming evidence to accept it. Yet the absence of such evidence could simply mean we've never looked in the right way, or in the right places. The ocean floor, for example, holds most of Earth's forgotten history. Continents erode, but sediments accumulate quietly at the bottom of the sea. There, under kilometers of mud, the story of the planet lies in layers like the pages of a diary. Each page represents thousands, sometimes millions of years. If a civilization ever rose and fell before us, their most enduring fingerprints might rest there, hidden in those silent depths. Even now, we are just beginning to explore them. Autonomous submarines map the seabed in small patches, but most of the ocean remains uncharted. Less than 20% of the seafloor has been mapped in detail. The rest is darkness and pressure and silence. Somewhere down there, untouched for millions of years, could be the geological echoes of a world we've never known. And even if there were once structures, time would have erased their shape, leaving only chemical shadows. The irony is that we ourselves are creating the kind of trace future geologists might mistake for natural. Our industrial age leaves behind carbon isotopes, rare earth elements, synthetic molecules, and altered sediment layers that mimic volcanic or meteorological events. To an observer millions of years from now, our presence might look like just another brief global warming episode, a spike in carbon, followed by a mass extinction. They might find no ruins, no machines, only the chemistry of change. In that sense, the Earth is the ultimate recycler. It uses the same materials again and again, reshaping them into new worlds, new lives, new possibilities. And perhaps that is why the idea of forgotten civilizations feels both eerie and inevitable. If the planet has existed this long, if life has reinvented itself so many times, why not intelligence? It might rise like a wave, crest and break, over and over, leaving only ripples in stone. And if we are indeed the latest crest, what does that mean for our future? When we look at our own impact, we see patterns that echo the same cycles that might have ended others: rapid growth, exploitation of resources, environmental destabilization, technological acceleration that outpaces wisdom. Perhaps the rise and fall of intelligence is not a unique story, but a rhythm built into the evolution of complex worlds. In that case, the Silurian hypothesis is more than a curiosity, it's a warning. It reminds us that the planet endures, but civilizations do not. That the true measure of intelligence might not be how high we climb, but how long we can stay in balance with the world that sustains us. Every civilization, whether hypothetical or real, eventually faces the same test: can it adapt faster than it consumes? The fossil record shows that extinction is the rule, not the exception. 99% of species that have ever lived are gone. The same mathematics likely applies to civilizations. In cosmic terms, we might already be living in borrowed time. The real question becomes, will we leave behind a trace worth finding? Some thinkers suggest that if earlier civilizations existed, their remains might not be geological but astronomical. They might have left signals, electromagnetic transmissions, artificial satellites, or even probes, drifting through space. Yet even those would be nearly impossible to detect after millions of years. Radiation, micrometeorite impacts, and orbital decay would erase them. The cosmos, like Earth, is not kind to permanence. Still, we search, we listen. Perhaps what drives us to explore the stars is not just curiosity about who else might be out there, but an unspoken hope to discover who might have been here before. And maybe that search, whether outward or inward, is the very thing that defines civilization itself, the urge to understand, to remember, to leave something behind. When we consider the possibility of ancient advanced life, we also confront our own fragility. We imagine others who might have faced the same dilemmas, asked the same questions, looked up at their own night skies, and wondered if they were alone. In that reflection, they become less hypothetical and more like distant kin, bound to us by the same cosmic curiosity. Perhaps that's the real beauty of this idea. Whether or not they ever existed, the thought of them makes us think more deeply about ourselves, about what it means to be a civilization, and what traces of wonder we will leave behind when we, too, are gone. Somewhere, deep beneath layers of rock and time, there might already be whispers of those who came before, waiting patiently for us to find them. If we imagine for a moment that we did find evidence, real, undeniable proof that another civilization had risen before us, how would that change us? The first reaction might be disbelief, then awe, then an unsettling realization that history is deeper and more circular than we ever knew. Textbooks would need rewriting, religions would need rethinking, and our sense of uniqueness would dissolve. Humanity has long comforted itself with the idea that we are the beginning of consciousness on this planet, the first to think, to question, to dream. But what if we were just the latest chapter in a much longer book, one that has been opened and closed many times before? Imagine the scientific debate that would follow. Teams of geologists, chemists, and archaeologists would descend upon the discovery site, measuring, dating, analyzing, arguing. Was it truly artificial? Was it truly ancient? The world would watch as every assumption we've ever held about civilization's timeline began to shift. Suddenly, myths might not seem so mythical. Stories of gods descending from the sky, of lost continents swallowed by the sea, of great fires and floods, might acquire a new kind of gravity. We'd see our ancestors not as naive storytellers, but as witnesses to the echoes of something they could not fully comprehend. Yet such a revelation would also carry a quiet sadness. Because if a great civilization had come before, its end would remind us of what might await us too. To find their ruins would be to stare into our own reflection, a message from deep time saying, this has all happened before. And maybe, beneath the thrill of discovery, that would be the real lesson. Every civilization carries within it the seeds of its own undoing. Growth demands energy. Energy reshapes the world. Reshaping the world creates imbalance. It's a pattern written in physics, not fate. And so, perhaps the first civilization fell not through war or greed, but through inevitability, a system that outgrew its stability. In their final days, they might have watched their skies darken, their oceans rise, their climates twist out of control. They might have looked for solutions, built machines, invented technologies beyond our imagination, and still found themselves powerless against the momentum of change. Just as we now find ourselves at a crossroads, aware of our impact, yet bound by it. There's a haunting symmetry in that thought, because if others once faced this same struggle, we are, in a sense, continuing their story. The earth does not keep their monuments, but it may keep their lesson, written not in stone, but in the delicate balance of its ecosystems, in the warning signs we now see repeating. Perhaps the real evidence of their existence is not in fossils or artifacts, but in the rhythm of collapse that echoes through the planet's memory. There's something both terrifying and comforting in imagining we are not the first. Terrifying because it means even advanced intelligence cannot guarantee survival. Comforting because it means intelligence may be a natural outcome of life, that the universe keeps trying over and over to know itself. If civilizations have risen and fallen before, then consciousness is not a cosmic accident, but a recurring phenomenon, a spark that the universe cannot help but rekindle. In that sense, we might not be alone in time, even if we are alone in space. Think about what that would mean for the human story. Every discovery we've made, fire, flight, fusion, might not be firsts, but rediscoveries. Lessons relearned after each reset, each forgetting. Technology could be cyclical, knowledge rediscovered rather than invented. And perhaps that explains why certain ideas, certain symbols, certain architectures keep reappearing throughout history. The same patterns carved into stone in ancient Egypt, in the temples of South America, in the ruins of Asia, the spirals, the suns, the aligned monoliths that mark solstices and stars. We often explain these as coincidence or universal curiosity. But maybe they are faint echoes, subconscious memories of things once known, carried through the human collective like whispers in genetic memory. It's a poetic thought, not provable, but deeply resonant. The truth, though, is that memory does not only live in humans. The earth itself remembers, though imperfectly. In layers of rock, in trapped air, in chemical signatures, the planet stores traces of what it has endured. Some scientists have suggested that if a civilization's industrial phase lasted long enough, it could alter the geological and biological record in detectable ways. For instance, our plastic waste, billions of tons of polymers, might one day fossilize into a new material, plastiglomerate, a strange fusion of organic and synthetic matter. Future geologists might find it and wonder, what kind of world made this? In the same way, if a pre-human civilization once produced synthetic materials, their molecular fossils might still be out there, unrecognized, unclassified, dismissed as natural oddities. But even that hope fades when we consider the sheer scale of time. 100 million years erases almost everything. Heat, pressure, erosion, and plate tectonics turn continents into ocean, and ocean into mountain. Even the strongest alloy becomes dust. The only records that survive that long are geological, and even they speak softly. And so the paradox remains, if we ever find evidence, it will be the faintest of traces. A single chemical pattern, a single isotope ratio, a single anomaly that defies explanation. It would not be enough to prove a civilization existed, only enough to keep us wondering forever. Yet maybe that's enough. Maybe the purpose of the question is not to find them, but to remember that we, too, are temporary, that the planet will continue long after we are gone, just as it did long before we arrived. Every species, every civilization, every spark of intelligence is a brief experiment in the vast laboratory of time. Some succeed for a while, some fail, but all eventually fade into the same geological silence. When we gaze into the night sky, we're really looking into time, at ancient light from stars that died before Earth even formed. Some of those stars might have had worlds like ours, civilizations like ours, long gone before their light reached us. In a cosmic sense, we are surrounded by ghosts, not supernatural ones, but the spectral remains of civilizations erased by time and distance. And maybe that's what makes this idea so haunting. It suggests that intelligence is not rare, but fragile, that the universe is full of minds that bloomed and vanished, each leaving a faint trace of wonder behind. To ask if we are the first on Earth is to ask if we are alone in time, and perhaps the answer, whispered through the layers of stone, is no. Somewhere deep within the planet's memory, beneath miles of sediment and pressure, there may lie the last footprints of those who came before. We may never find them, but knowing they might exist changes how we see ourselves. It turns history from a ladder into a circle, and civilization from destiny into moment. The question then becomes not whether others existed, but whether we will last long enough to leave behind a trace that matters. And as the night deepens and the world grows quiet, that question lingers, soft, endless, beautiful, like the echo of a forgotten dream that still hums beneath the surface of the earth. When we look at the night sky, it's easy to think of space as the ultimate mystery, vast, silent, and unknown. But perhaps the greater mystery lies beneath our feet, in the ground that holds the memory of everything that has ever lived. The earth, in its deep and patient way, is a storyteller. It speaks slowly, in stone and sediment, in the language of fossils and isotopes. We, the latest listeners, are only beginning to understand its grammar. For most of human history, we imagined ourselves at the center of everything, the chosen, the pinnacle. It's only in the last few centuries that we've learned to see differently, that we are one species among many, one civilization among countless possibilities. But the deeper we look into the planet's history, the more humbling it becomes. We find entire worlds that existed and vanished before us, worlds with ecosystems so complex they make ours seem young and incomplete. The Devonian seas teemed with creatures that had never known dry land. The Carboniferous forests towered with plants that shaped the atmosphere itself. Life has reinvented itself endlessly, and every time it does, it leaves a faint signature behind. So what if intelligence, too, has reinvented itself, not just once, but multiple times? Imagine a civilization that arose when the continents were joined in a single mass, Pangaea, perhaps 250 million years ago. Their maps would have been of one great land, ringed by an endless ocean. Imagine the languages they might have spoken, the machines they might have built, the stars they might have named. Then imagine them gone, their cities buried beneath mountain ranges that no longer exist, their signals lost in the cosmic background noise. All that remains is the memory of their chemistry, the soft fingerprint of their passing hidden in the crust. We might be standing right now on the dust of their greatest cities, and never know. And yet, there is something strangely hopeful in that possibility, because it means that life, given enough time, always finds a way to rise again. It means that intelligence is not a single spark, but a recurring flame, one that burns, fades, and returns in new forms. Perhaps the real question is not whether others came before, but whether others will come after. If we vanish tomorrow, how long would it take for life to begin again? Would evolution, patient and inventive, create minds once more? Would they look like us, think like us, dream as we do? Would they find our traces and ask the same questions we ask now? Perhaps one day, millions of years from now, a new species might uncover strange minerals in the rock, alloys that don't fit natural patterns, layers rich with carbon polymers, residues of radiation. They might puzzle over the sudden spike of chemical complexity, the odd alignment of certain isotopes. They might look at each other and ask, what if we are not the first? And in that moment, our story would begin again, not as memory, but as mystery. To think that our civilization could one day be reduced to a mystery is both humbling and poetic. We live surrounded by the illusion of permanence, cities, nations, technologies that feel eternal. But the Earth has seen mountains rise and vanish, seas form and disappear, climates shift beyond recognition. Against that backdrop, our skyscrapers are temporary sculptures of dust and glass. Even the data we send into space, the signals we beam into the void, will fade. Time erases all traces, not out of cruelty, but because that is its nature. The second law of thermodynamics, entropy, is the universe's most patient sculptor. It takes everything apart, piece by piece, until even the memory of structure is gone. But within that decay, there's a strange kind of beauty. It means that everything we build, every thought we think, becomes part of the universe's endless process of renewal. Nothing is truly lost, it simply changes form. The atoms in our bodies were once in stars, and someday they'll be part of new stars again. So if ancient civilizations did exist, perhaps they too live on. Not in monuments or ruins, but in the dust, in the air, in the same atoms that now make us. The boundary between them and us dissolves, leaving only continuity. Maybe that's the secret message hidden in the Silurian Hypothesis. Not that others lived before, but that we are all part of the same long experiment of life and consciousness. We're not first or last, we're a single verse in a poem the Earth has been writing for billions of years. Still, the scientist in us wants evidence, something tangible, measurable. And there are faint candidates. Some deep-sea sediment layers contain unexpected spikes of certain metals, patterns that hint at rapid industrial activity. There are moments in the geological record when the planet warmed suddenly, then stabilized again, much as it is now. Could those be signatures of ancient industry? Most likely they're natural, volcanic bursts or methane releases. But even the act of asking the question forces us to look harder, to refine our tools, to read the planet's record more carefully. In that way, the search for ancient civilizations isn't just about the past, it's about understanding our present. Every time we study how Earth erases or preserves traces of life, we learn how fragile our own evidence is. We learn how short our time might be, and how easily our achievements could vanish. But we also learn how to read the planet, how to recognize the signs of imbalance before they become collapse. The Silurian Hypothesis, whether true or not, becomes a form of self-awareness. It makes us planetary thinkers. It reminds us that we are part of a vast continuum, and that our survival depends on understanding that continuum, not fighting against it. If we ever hope to last longer than those who might have come before, we must learn from the Earth's deep history, not from fossils of the forgotten, but from the rhythms of stability and change that govern all life. Because civilization at its core is an energy experiment. It's about how much energy a species can harness without destroying its home. Every civilization, real or hypothetical, walks that line. Too little energy, and it cannot grow. Too much, and it burns itself out. The first civilizations, if they ever were, may have learned this too late. We are learning it now, in real time. Perhaps their legacy is not lost. Perhaps it's written in the physics of the world itself, in the limits we're now discovering. Maybe that's how civilizations talk to each other, not with words or signals, but through the patterns they leave behind in matter and energy. A kind of cosmic conversation, written not in language, but in law. As you listen, imagine that the hum of the planet, the soft rhythm beneath all life, carries a faint echo of others who once listened too. Imagine that every storm, every quake, every cycle of renewal carries their memory forward, diffused into the living fabric of the world. Maybe that's what we sense when we stare at the stars or feel small beneath the weight of time, not just awe but recognition, a knowing that we've been here before, in some form, in some forgotten age, and as sleep drifts closer, that thought becomes less a question and more a comfort. Because even if we are not the first, even if countless others have risen and fallen, consciousness itself endures. The universe keeps finding a way to wake up, to wonder, to look at itself, through new eyes, in new ages, on new worlds. We are part of that story, and for this brief moment, we are its voice. There's a strange comfort in knowing that we might not be the beginning. It takes away the loneliness that comes from believing we are the first spark of intelligence in an endless dark. If others walked this earth before us, if they dreamed, built, and wondered, then we are part of something far bigger than our own fragile history. But if that's true, it also means the universe has a rhythm of forgetting. Civilizations rise, flourish, and fall silent, their traces folded into the planet's next chapter. The Earth does not mourn or remember in the way we do. It simply moves on, rewriting its surface, reshaping its seas, renewing its skies. And yet, there is always continuity, even in erasure. The carbon from ancient life fuels the fire of modern engines. The minerals once used in tools now rest inside our bones. The circle continues, unnoticed, but unbroken. Perhaps the story of previous civilizations isn't one of loss, but transformation. If they once harnessed knowledge, perhaps fragments of that understanding never truly vanished. Maybe it persisted, not as written language or machinery, but as intuition, subtle laws imprinted in the patterns of evolution, in the deep design of life itself. It's an idea that stretches the imagination, but also humbles it. What if our curiosity, our drive to explore, to build, to look to the stars, is not purely our own? What if it's the echo of something ancient, something the planet itself remembers? We tend to think of intelligence as something unique to us, but maybe it's a recurring property of complex systems, a tendency of the universe to become aware of itself, again and again, in different forms. And each time it happens, the same questions return. Who are we? Where did we come from? Are we alone? The questions never change, only the voices asking them do. Somewhere in the quiet between tectonic shifts and ice ages, those questions might have been whispered before. Perhaps they were once spoken by beings who looked nothing like us, who breathed a different atmosphere and walked a world we would barely recognize. Maybe they too wondered if they were the first, unaware that we would one day ask the same thing. In that reflection lies a strange symmetry, an ancient cosmic déjà vu. It's like the universe has been dreaming the same dream over and over, each time through new dreamers. We are simply the latest version of that dream. When we explore this possibility scientifically, it becomes a story of evidence and probability. But when we explore it emotionally, it becomes a story of belonging. Because to imagine others before us is to imagine that consciousness itself is not fragile, but resilient, that even after world's end, awareness finds its way back. Maybe the rise of civilization is as inevitable as the rise of life. Maybe given enough time, the universe will always find a way to look at itself and wonder. But there's another side to that thought, a warning hidden inside the comfort. If civilizations can come and go, it means ours too can fade. We might be part of a repeating pattern, not an exception to it. The question then becomes, will we break the cycle or repeat it? The evidence of earlier life, if it existed, would have been buried by forces we still don't fully control. Climate shifts, ecological collapse, runaway technology, or cosmic catastrophe. Each possibility is both a scientific theory and a mirror for our own potential future. We see in them the shadows of our choices, because if the Earth has already seen civilizations rise and fall, then it already knows what happens when intelligence goes too far, too fast. Maybe that's why the Earth feels so patient with us, like it has seen this before. Our oceans rising, our atmosphere changing, our species racing towards something uncertain. Maybe the planet isn't reacting to us, but remembering us. There's a quiet sadness in that thought, but also wisdom. Perhaps the true lesson hidden in this question, what if we are not the first, is not about proof, but about perspective. It's a story about humility and the need to listen to the planet instead of speaking over it. Because if we ever want to be remembered, we must first learn to remember the Earth. Every fossil, every layer of rock, every chemical trace is a page of its autobiography. But we tend to read only the parts that flatter us, the moments where we appear. We forget that most of the book was written long before us and will continue long after. When we zoom out far enough, our entire history, every war, every empire, every invention, is a thin shimmer of noise on the cosmic scale. Yet within that shimmer lies meaning. The universe doesn't need us to notice it, but it allows us to. It gives us the rare privilege of awareness, of curiosity, of awe, and maybe that's what connects us to any who came before. Not technology, not biology, but awe. The same awe that makes us look up at the stars at night and feel something infinite looking back. The same awe that makes us whisper, we are small, but we are part of something vast. Maybe that feeling is the truest artifact any civilization can leave behind. Not a monument, not a machine, but a way of seeing. Because awe endures. It crosses species, worlds, and time. It is the one emotion that feels eternal. If ancient beings once felt it too, then in some sense they are still with us, in that shared wonder that transcends extinction. So when we imagine their existence, we're not fantasizing about alien ruins or forgotten empires. We're remembering that consciousness itself is ancient, that awareness has always been part of the universe, flickering into form wherever conditions allow. Maybe the universe is a mirror, and civilizations are its reflections. Each one rises, learns, fades, and returns, and the reflection continues endlessly, each iteration teaching something new. The real mystery is not whether others came before, but whether we are learning what they could not. Whether we can look at the lessons carved into the planet's memory and choose differently. We stand at a crossroads every ancient civilization must have faced, the moment when our knowledge outpaces our wisdom. The question is timeless: will we survive our own brilliance? The answer will decide whether, millions of years from now, another intelligence will stand where we are now, wondering the same thing. Maybe that's the true conversation between civilizations, not in signals or ruins, but in the questions we pass forward through time. Questions like, how can life thrive without destroying its home? How can intelligence coexist with humility? How can curiosity be balanced with care? Those are the messages that endure, hidden not in stone or metal, but in the moral physics of existence. And perhaps, just perhaps, the fact that we are asking these questions now is proof that we are already listening, that we can feel the echoes of those who once asked them too. Maybe that is what it means to be alive right now, to stand on the surface of a planet that has seen everything, and still find wonder in the act of existing. We are the newest voice in an ancient choir, adding our note to a song that began long before memory, and will continue long after sound itself has faded. The earth doesn't need to remind us of our place. It already holds us in balance, steady and silent. Every grain of sand, every breath of air, every drop of water has been recycled through endless forms, carrying with it the history of all that has ever been. When you touch the ground, you are touching everything. The residue of stars, the fragments of extinct creatures, the ashes of forgotten fires. We are surrounded by ghosts, not of people, but of moments. Every moment that has ever existed still vibrates faintly in the atoms around us, like ripples that never fully disappear. And somewhere among those ripples, maybe, are the traces of the ones who came before, the quiet civilizations whose memories are now part of the wind. If we could listen closely enough, maybe we would hear them, not in language or sound, but in resonance, the resonance of a planet that remembers, the pulse of a world that has been conscious before. It's a haunting idea, but also a beautiful one, that awareness isn't something we invented, but something we inherited, that the earth itself is alive with memory, and that we are the latest expression of that memory awakening again. When you think about it that way, history isn't a straight line. It's a tide, moving in and out. Civilizations rise like waves, bright, temporary, full of energy, and then sink back into the ocean of time. But each wave carries something of the ones before it: knowledge, curiosity, the impulse to reach higher. Even if the surface is calm, the deep water remembers every motion. Maybe the real question isn't, were we the first, but what will we leave behind? Because one day, long after our cities have turned to dust and our satellites have fallen from orbit, the Earth will still be here, quiet, patient, breathing, and someone or something will find the faint geologic echo of our age. They'll see the trace of our metals, the plastic compressed into stone, the thin chemical scar we've drawn across the sky. They'll study us the way we study the past, with curiosity, maybe even with empathy. They'll try to understand who we were, and maybe, in that moment, they'll feel the same mix of wonder and sadness we feel now when we look back into deep time. They'll realize that every civilization is both a miracle and a warning. But even that is not the end. Because just as those before us may live on in our atoms, we too will live on in theirs. Our legacy isn't only in what we build, but in what we become, in how we treat the world that made us, and how we prepare it for what comes next. Perhaps the greatest discovery of all is that nothing truly ends. Energy changes, life adapts, consciousness reappears. The universe is not a story of creation and destruction, but of transformation. Every fall gives rise to a new dawn, every silence to a new voice. Somewhere, someday, another mind will awaken under a different sky and feel the same pull we do, to ask, to dream, to wonder. And when they do, they'll be continuing the same endless dialogue between the cosmos and itself. So as we close our eyes tonight and let the thoughts drift away, imagine that you are part of that infinite conversation. Imagine the atoms in your body remembering every age of the world, every civilization that ever was or ever will be. Imagine the stars above as the watching eyes of time, patient and kind. We are temporary, yes, but we are also timeless. For a brief moment, we are the way the universe looks back at itself and smiles. We are the continuation of a story without beginning or end, written in starlight, whispered through oceans, carried by dust. And if, in some forgotten future, another civilization asks the same question we ask tonight, what if we are not the first? Maybe they'll feel what we feel now, a quiet awe, a gentle gratitude, the realization that even if everything ends, the act of wondering never does. Because to wonder is to be alive, to question is to belong, and to dream, even for a moment, is to touch the eternal. So rest now, fellow traveler. Let the thought of ancient worlds cradle you like a memory. The earth turns softly beneath you, carrying the traces of everything that ever was. You are not alone. You never were. The same universe that held them holds you. The same silence that followed them listens for you. Close your eyes, breathe, and remember, the story continues, even here, even now, even in the stillness between stars.